Welcome back. It is 7:27 this Friday morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget you can respond to our question this morning, which is, do you think the police, the local police force, is handling the email investigation appropriately, effectively or ineffectively and inappropriately? You can send a tweet at First Up Live or post facebook.com/firstuplive. We would love to hear what you think about that question. In this segment, we focus on the cabinet-appointed multi-sectorial steering committee for the integrated coastal zone management of Trinidad and Tobago. The overall goal of the agency is to improve the quality of life for citizens who depend on coastal resources while maintaining the biological diversity and productivity of coastal ecosystems. There's a public consultation coming up on Thursday, the 4th of July, 9 a.m. to 12 noon at the Central Diego Martin Community Center, Jasper Avenue, Diamond Vale, Diego Martin. In studio with us, we have Chair of the Steering Committee, Dr. Rohana Juman, and also Information Officer of the Institute of Marine Affairs, IMA, Beverly Foster. Such as the Chief Information Officer. Good morning, ladies. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Dr. Juman, you know, we're island states in the Caribbean. Of course, we have small island states at that, at the behest of our environmental challenges, more so in recent times. How important is this type of consultation in one, raising awareness, and two, dealing with the issues or getting information on issues that really affect people, especially who live in coastal areas?
Okay, let me give you a little background. In terms of the integrated coastal zone management, it's a process where we're trying to bring all the actors that depend on coastal resources, that work on the coast, that live on the coast, to come together so that we can have an integrated and a coordinated plan. Obviously, what we have right now is not working because our problems persist. And the whole idea with the ICZM is this participatory management, having people meaningfully involved in the process. And that's why we're starting these pre-policy consultations. And the one on July 4th is going to be the first. That's the one for the Chaguaramas Northwestern Peninsula. But we're going to be having these consultations throughout the islands and a lot of the communities, as well as among stakeholder groups, the shippers, the industries, the tourist sector, fishery sectors, and so on.
All stakeholder groups.
All stakeholder groups, because we want to know what it is you want and how can we now integrate plans and coordinate so that we can have something that would work for everybody.
Beverly Foster, as Chief Information Officer with the IMA, very often, as Dr. Juman said, it's focused on the coastal areas. But because of the integrated ecosystems in any jurisdiction, what happens in Central affects what happens in South. What happens in Port of Spain affects what happens in Diego Martin. Do you think there is enough focus on environmental issues in the country so that people are starting to get aware of all their actions and consequences of their actions?
I think what is important is that while we live on an island, while we think about this as integrated coastal zone management, if you look at the size of Trinidad and Tobago, we could all be considered to be living on the coast. And therefore, everything is integrated. So what you do upstream ends up, you know, down in the oceans, okay? So that, you know, our biggest problem is land-based sources of pollution. Yes, Dr. Juman could probably shed some light again in terms of some of the key issues that integrated coastal zone management wants to deal with. You know?
Let's deal with that.
Yeah, but we're looking at the habitats as well. This is not just an environmental project or policy. This has to do with integrating all aspects or the three pillars of sustainable development, which looks at the environment, yes, but economic and social development as well. In terms of coastal issues, as Ms. Foster said, land-based sources of pollution is a major, major concern because we are seeing the impacts of that on our ecosystem, particularly our reefs in Tobago that are undergoing stress due to eutrophication or too much nutrients in the water, too much sediments. Other issues are coastal erosion. We have, you know, in terms of conflicts, in terms of land use on the coast, our wetlands are being destroyed, that sort of stuff.
Talking about the landfill the other day.
Yeah, and then we also have issues in terms of well, the conflicts between the different users. And this has become even more prominent in recent times between the oil industry and the fishers and so on. And also too, in terms of coastal erosion, that is a major, major concern. And with all of that, we still have to prepare or adapt to climate change. And it is happening. I mean, earlier this week we had the President of the United States finally making a statement. We need to act.
It took a while.
It took a long, the US government took a while, but the thing about it is they still have, you know, in terms of adaptation and coastal adaptation, they can move landward. Where are we going to go?
Yeah, we have a tiny island.
Exactly. There's
Not wanting to draw you into a controversy at all, let me start with that proviso. But how are these fora going to deal with groups who sometimes question the balance of large developmental projects like the highway in Debe, which will eventually affect, because of the integrated ecosystems, with the need to have those sorts of development for obvious reasons, social and economic development, as opposed to the protections and the concerns that have been articulated about the damage or the impact on the ecosystems?
Okay, well, how are we going to approach it? You know, we tend to do the same things and expect different results. In our public consultation, our approach is a bit different. It's not about I'm coming there and I'm doing a presentation, this is what we plan to do and so on. We're taking a different approach. We're basically not doing that. We have an introduction, but it's going to be what you want. What is your concern? What is your issues? Because the whole idea is consensus building. And the reality is there are conflicts that has to be addressed. We can't move away from it any longer, but we have to look at the context in terms of the entire country and what is beneficial for all. So we have to try to build consensus amongst these different, and probably try to see how we can address some of these conflicts.
You're a scientist,
yes.
You're a technocrat. How do you reconcile that with sometimes political expediency and what I'm not being political in any way, what any administration in power may want from their developmental thrust, as opposed to what people tell you at the consultations, and how much of that is actually applied? Let me start with Beverly on that.
I think what is important is that, and I shudder to use words like dialogue and stuff. To me, it has to be, consultation. People need to dialogue. People need to listen. I don't think we listen to each other, because one of the major problems with listening is that you risk getting your mind changed. So if it is, you really listen openly, but we have to start to create some spaces where people can actually speak and other people can listen, and different people with different ideas. If we don't do that, right, then people will not understand, or continue to not understand, that what they do now, okay, it's not just about them, it's about their children, it's about their children's children, and that is how you have to get people emotionally engaged. Because I think because there's so much happening, we tend to be disengaged.
But people get emotionally engaged when they feel that their voices are going to be heard and their thought processes or their opinions applied in some measure. And sometimes people don't get it. And one thing, I'm not trying to drag you into any controversy, but that's the reality. If I feel that voices are being heard and my thoughts are being applied at some measure, I am encouraged to further participate. When I feel, well, the consultation was great and we go through the process or the protocol of consultation because it is what is democratic, but I don't see a lot of what I said being applied, and we can't apply everybody's opinions. That is where the disconnect, I guess, occurs.
You know, again, like I said, we want people to be meaningfully engaged and part of the process. The whole idea of ICZM, as I mentioned, it's a process. It's going to take a while because it's about changing attitude, changing culture, and so on, how we do what we do. And we want people to be involved, because too many times as a country, we tend to sit down and say our politicians are going to fix it, our councillors, or, you know, we have to, you know, sort of encourage them to do that, to be actively involved in our democracy and not just every 5 years. And the whole idea of again, for this to work, yes, you need buy-in at the top, the political will, but you also need a push a push from the bottom. And for that to happen, I think people have to, as Ms. Foster says, they have to own this issue. They have to see how it affects them and that they have an input. Because too many times there's a disconnect. You know, a man littering or throwing garbage in a river doesn't realize he's going to be swimming in it later on.
He doesn't realize he's one of 100. And the problem is cumulative. In our final minute, Beverly Foster, let's just go through Thursday, 4th of July, 9 a.m. to 12 noon. What should people walk with? Open minds and strong opinions? Yes,
they should walk with open minds, strong opinions, and really understand that we want them to speak, because we are listening. And we're not just listening in a vacuum, we're listening, we're developing an action plan, a policy that is going to work, that integrates their views and we'll make it work. But we have to work together.
And we'll change the course of their lifestyles down the road.
Yes.
Hopefully for the better. Dr. Juman and Beverly Foster, thanks for being with us. Wonderful talking to you. Don't forget the forum takes place, the consultation takes place this Thursday, the 4th of July, next Thursday, 9 a.m. to 12 noon, Central Diego Martin Community Center, number 1 Jasper Avenue, Diamondville, Diego Martin. And you go, strong opinions and open minds. We'll take a break and come back with more. This is First Up on CTV.